Hello and welcome back to the port. I'm the Gap Major, and this is a video in regards to commanders for French destroyers. So before we go looking at the commanders, the first thing we should really do is consider what are the general traits of the French destroyers, and therefore how can we affect this with our commanders. So one thing we can start to take away is that the French destroyers do have a high HP pool. So health isn't going to be much of a concern. However, we do have thin armor. Now obviously we can't affect armor with our commanders, but we might be able to affect HP with inspirations. Going on to the artillery, one thing to really take away is that we seem to have a good range but a slow to average traverse speed. But the key thing to take away here is that we have a very good DPM and fires per minute. So what that means is we can chuck a lot of stuff downrange, which is going to hurt a lot and set a lot of fires. So that's a good thing. So these are very about their guns, is the best way to put it. When it comes to the torpedoes, a very long reload time, very high damage. Okay, so that's something to take away. So long reload, high damage, and an okay range, an average range, I guess you could say. They don't give you much stealth torpedo range because you're detectability, but we'll get back to that. But the torpedoes do have a semi-alright range. Maneuverability, we are looking average speed, large turning circles though, and slow rudders. Okay, so our rudders aren't going to dig in as quick as we'd like. We've got quite large turning circles, so we're not going to be very nimble in the water, but our speed doesn't let us down too badly. Concealment wise, we're pretty much average, so we're better than say the Russians and the Americans, but we're not as good as the British and the Japanese. And then we're probably about the same as the Germans, maybe slightly worse than the Germans, depending on what tier you're looking at. And then it's always worth to consider the consumables. Now, all these destroyers will be coming with an engine boost, which adds 20% speed. That lasts for about 120 seconds and gives you plus 20% speed. So that means that'll make you the fastest with engine boost. So that's one of the things to always bear in mind. So our engine boost is there, and we do have it, and it will have a reload of 180 seconds. So it's got the normal reload as everyone else, but it does give us more. And then we will come with a main battery reload booster from tier 5 upwards, which gives you minus 50% reload speed on your main battery for 15 seconds. So now we've just briefly discussed what the French destroyers are like, it's time to take a look at the commandos. So firstly, let's take a look at Louis Valletti. Louis Valletti is more of a gunboat commander for the French destroyers, and we'll see why as we go through. His base trait is I disappear. This reduces the duration of increased detectability of your destroyer after firing the main guns. So what this means is, when you fire your main guns, your detectability goes from your detectability by ship all the way up to the maximum range of your main guns. This includes if you increase that range as well. Now if there's a ship within that range, you'll be detected for 20 seconds. If you have the Louis Valletti fully upgraded to mastery level 20 for the I disappear, then what will happen is the duration of that detectability will be reduced from 20 seconds to 15 seconds. So it's not a massive buff, but it is a nice buff. And I think it's an interesting one if you're going to be playing that kind of gunboat commander. Going on to his first ability, we have the options between quick fix and contact is imminent. So contact is imminent improves your torpedo speed by 4 knots, which is nice because your torpedoes are pretty slow. Quick fix basically keeps your steering gear and engine modules functional after sustaining critical damage. And I think what you choose for your first ability is going to go hand in hand with what you choose for your legendary ability. And the reason why I'm saying that is the French destroyers do not come with smoke screens. So if you end up in a bit of a brown trouser moment and you're having to disengage, you don't have smoke. All you have is your engine and the ability to run as fast as you can. So if your engine gets knocked out, or your rudder gets knocked out, your maneuverability drops off massively. You're dead in the water, or you're going around in circles. Right? And you've got one damage con. That doesn't mean that you're not going to take a hit again to the engine or the rudder, especially when you consider that your armor is quite thin and high explosives is going to keep penetrating. So I think whatever you choose up here, you need to bear it in mind when it comes to picking your legendary ability, because your legendary ability, you have Unstoppable. Now Unstoppable does exactly the same as Quick Fix. Gain reduced mobility with a disabled engine, but it also affects your rudder. I know because I've been doing some testing. Now this is countered with rapid torching, chance of a fire being caused by your destroyer's HE for a reduced HE shell damage. Okay, we can argue these two off against each other, but I think what you really need to either take Quick Fix or Unstoppable, or if you're trying to avoid another ability, like maybe you're trying to avoid rapid torching, or you're trying to avoid contact as imminent, then you want to maybe go for both. I think Quick Fix is the stronger of the two abilities because of that reduced incoming splash damage though. So I think for the base trait, or the first trait of Valletti, I would probably recommend Quick Fix. Now, a second ability, your options are Look at Me Now, which reduces your seed detectability range by a fixed percentage. You have Flank Speed. Flank Speed increases the maximum speed of your destroyer at the cost of rudder shift. Your speed is average, your rudder shift is poor, so you're making your poor rudder shift worse and your average speed slightly better. I do not recommend this. I would say ignore Flank Speed, it is a null ability. Go All Out. Now this is a very interesting ability, because it reduces the detectability of your ship while the engine boost is active. However, it increases the reload time of your engine boost. So your engine boost normally reloads in 3 minutes. This is taking that reload time up to 4.5 minutes. So what that means is that in order to use your engine boost, or both engine boosts completely in the game, it's going to take you 8.5 minutes out of a 15-minute game. So it doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room to use both your engine boosts to get the buff out of the detectability. And the other one you have to consider is that you're only going to be getting this buff to your detectability for 4 minutes of a 15-minute game, and the rest of the time your detectability is going to be average. And I think this is why I'm starting to feel this ability, although it's a nice ability, for me it's not the right ability. Now it may play into your playstyle, don't get me wrong, if you want to play that way, you can play that way, it's fine. But I feel that Look at Me Now is a better ability because you have a consistent buff to your detectability. You know what your detectability is going to be like the entire game and how to play to it. Whereas with Go All Out, you have a buffed detectability for 4 minutes of the game and average detectability, which is probably going to be bad detectability now because you've got to consider that everyone in their right mind is going to be going for Look at Me Now. So if you don't go for Look at Me Now for 11 minutes of the game, you're at a 6% disadvantage in your detectability in comparison to everyone else. That's just one way to look at it. And so when you're told, do you want to have 20% better detectability for 4 minutes, but plus 6% detectability for the remaining 11, I think I'd rather just go for the minus 6% the entire time. But choice is yours. So the next ability we have Back in Stock, which improves your torpedo reload time. That's a very nice ability because your torpedoes do reload slowly. Glass Cannon. It improves your shell grouping, so it almost implies if you're playing at range. So it improves your shell grouping, improves the dispersion, just making your guns more accurate but at the cost of HP. And I think if you're playing gunboaty at range, this is worth considering because at range, your dispersion and the grouping of your shells is going to be a bit wandering. So this just makes it a nice tight cluster. At the cost of HP, well, you can probably afford that. And then there's standoff 4. The one thing to always bear in mind with standoff 4 is that standoff 4 it becomes better than back in stock once you lose up to, well, 40% health. After you lose more than 40% health, standoff 4 is actually a better ability. So it's quite a strange one, and that's why I've started to feel that maybe standoff 4 is actually quite a nice ability, because you have to lose 40% of your health to become better than back in stock. However, once you've lost more than 40% of your health, you're always going to be better than back in stock. So I think if you're going to be a kind of getting in there kind of ship, and you are expecting to take some damage, and you can afford to take some damage, standoff 4 is a nice ability. So for here, I think if you're playing a gunboater, you want glass cannon, which is quite a nice ability if you're definitely playing at a nice long range, or standoff 4 for a universal trait all the time. Now for the fourth ability, we have smoke on the water. French destroyers do not come with smoke screens. This is an absolute waste of ability, and pretty much the only time you're going to be picking smoke on the water is if you're trying to avoid taking sidestep. So why do you want to avoid taking sidestep? Well, sidestep improves the range of your destroyer's main guns, improves incoming dispersion, but makes your rudder shift worse. So your rudder shift is poor, you're making it worse. So the question is, can you accept that? Now, the reason why you might want to accept that is if you are playing at range. If you're playing these destroyers right on the edge of their maximum gun range, trying to keep that distance away from the enemy ships and taking off pop shots, using your detect abilities to drop off really quickly, using just popping off some shots, setting a couple of fires and then nipping off again, then I could see this being quite interesting. A long range gun destroyer. So if you're going to do a long range gun destroyer, you probably want to be looking at pretty much, as I've been saying here, a quick fix. Look at me now. Either glass cannon or standoff 4. I could see glass cannon being a stronger choice. At sidestep, because you can probably accept that poorer rudder shift at long range because you've got the range to be able to activate your rudder and dodge. You don't want to be taking this if you're going to be getting in close. And then when it comes to our legendary ability, so you have Unstoppable. Now you could either choose Unstoppable if you went for contact is imminent, or if you can take Unstoppable if you want to avoid taking rapid torching. So rapid torching is quite an interesting one because it improves the fire chance of your shells for reduced HE damage. Now you have a very good HE damage with these, and you also have a very good fires per minute chance. So if you are looking to be that kind of long range destroyer, popping off a couple of shots, setting an enemy on fire, then disappearing nice and quickly, this could be the build. In fact, having talked about it, I kind of feel like if I was going to go for a gunboat French destroyer, this would be my build. I'd go quick fix, look at me now, glass cannon, sidestep, rapid torching. My engine's going to keep working, my detectability is consistent, I've got better accuracy so I can play a bit more at range, I've improved my range, and I've also made myself harder to hit as well. And you've got to consider that the incoming dispersion there is combined with the reduced splash damage as well, and then go for rapid torching to set fires. Inspirations wise, I'd always highly recommend going for an Eric Bay and the William Sims. I always would. There could be other choices out there, but I think if you want to go for a nice, safe choice, you can't go wrong with these two. Well, that's Valletti. I'll join you again. We move on to the next one. Then we have Philippe Avion, and now Philippe Avion's base trait is Powder Keg. Powder Keg improves the HE damage of your main guns on a destroyer only. So it's an interesting ability. It's not standout. It's not special in any way. I'm surprised that Valletti and Avion's base traits aren't actually switched around, and vice versa, if you know what I mean. But it is what it is, and it's alright. Now going over some of his other traits, we're going to have to obviously consider that some of these we've already discussed before when we've been going over Valletti, so if we've already done them, then I'll try and keep my coverage on them as a minimum. So we have contact is imminent, so this is the same as Valletti's ability, which gives you improved torpedo speed, nothing special. Subsurface Venturer, however, is different. Now this obviously gives you the same buff to your speed, but also improves your torpedo tube reload time versus your main battery reload time. So obviously focusing more on torpedoes. Now this is an interesting ability, and I think it's possibly worth considering that the reload time of the French destroyers' torpedoes is pretty poor. Your DPM is quite good with your guns, therefore you can probably take that knock to the destroyer main guns, and then your torpedo speed is pretty poor, so therefore improving it. So I think Subsurface Venturer can be justified. Going on to his second ability, you can go Look at Me Now, which gives you the same as pretty much everyone else with Look at Me Now. Reduced detectability. We go Fragile Threat. Now this improves your detectability at the cost of the maximum HP of your ship. Considering that your ship has a very high base HP, this again, it's possibly worth considering, because your detectability is drastically improved all of the time at the cost of HP, which is pretty decent on these destroyers, so maybe you can consider that. Go All Out, we've already covered. This gives you a very nice buff to your detectability at the cost of reload speed, so we've already discussed the advantages and disadvantages of this with Valletti. However, one thing to mention is that Philip Abion does have this Give Me Speed legendary ability, which improves the engine boost reload time, engine boost duration, and gives you more charges. I think if you had him fully upgraded, you might be able to actually use all 3 engine boosts within a game, and I think that would be quite a strong ability. However, I'll come back to why I still think that, although it's an interesting build, and there may be some of you out there who want to do that, I don't think it's worthwhile personally, for myself anyway. Now going on to his third ability, we have Back in Stock, same as Valletti, improved torpedo launcher reload time. We have Torpedo Safari, and this improves your torpedo range at the cost of your main battery range. So your main battery range is average and your torpedo range is average, but what you're going to consider with the French is you don't have a great stealth torpedo range. So by combining Torpedo Safari with Fragile Threat, you're improving your stealth torpedo range by 13% at the moment, and that's only going to be going up and getting better. Now, I think this is worthwhile. So one of the things I've noticed with the French is their torpedoes hit like a truck. They have the highest amount of damage at their tiers. So you're looking at, for example, with the Jaguar, I was finding I was killing the tier 4 cruiser with 2 torpedoes and a tier 4 battleship with only 4 torpedoes. So you don't have to get a lot of torpedoes on target to wipe them out. So this is why I think Torpedo Safari is quite an interesting ability, because you're improving your stealth torpedo range. Standard 4 we've already discussed. You're going to get the same benefits from Standards 4 as Back in Stock once you lose 40% of your health. I think if you're trying to avoid Torpedo Safari, maybe you're going to go here, but this is the thing, if you're trying to avoid taking some of these negative abilities, you might as well go for Valletti, because Valletti offers you Standard 4, Back in Stock, Look at Me Now, and Contact is Imminent, and Go All Out. So Abion is offering you some special stuff with Subsurface Venturer, Fragile Threat, and Torpedo Safari. Now also we have Smoke on the Water, useless because we don't have smoke screens, so you have to kind of consider Destroy Be Destroyed. Do you want to take this? Improve your destroyer speed, but this time it's at the shell grouping of the destroyer's main guns. I think you can accept that. Your average speed is basically your average speed without your engine boost, so therefore improving that's nice. And then the shell grouping, you're already kind of accepting with this. You're kind of going down the torpedo boat build rather than the gun build. If you want gun build, you want to go for Valletti. If you want a torpedo build, you want to be going for an Abion. Now going on to legendary ability, the Give Me Speed goes very well hand in hand with Go All Out. But like I was saying with Valletti, you don't have a smoke screen and you have thin armor. Therefore your engine module and your rudder module is going to be exposed to taking critical damage quite often. If you end up in an engagement where you decide, nope, I don't want to be here, maybe there's too much enemy DPM coming in, maybe the destroyer you come up against is outclassing you or has more HP than you and is going to win this combat or is being assisted, you need to break off that engagement. And in order to break off that engagement, you probably want to hit smack your engine boost and just turn and run. So that means you need to keep your engine going, and you can't afford to lose your engine or your rudder, or else you're just going to be dead in the water or going around in circles. So you have to go for unstoppable, and I think that is why you have to go for that. So this is why I think the Philip Albion is the only one where you can possibly consider going all out, because you can then give me speed. However, I think you have to go for unstoppable, therefore that means that you can't go all out, therefore you kind of have to consider fragile threat. And therefore I think this is the build that I've been testing, and it has been giving me some decent results. Again, inspirations wise, Bay for concealment, Sims for HP, and amusingly Sims seems to counter the fragile threat. So the French destroyers and their addition to the game, are they worthwhile? Is it a good release? Is it too early to call? Well, they're interesting, but you have to consider the French concept of these destroyers, where they were supposed to be destroyer hunters, and we have no destroyer hunting abilities. Tier 5 upwards, we do have a main battery reload booster, which just allows us to pop it off and absolutely slam a destroyer, and probably wipe it out if it doesn't have a smoke screen. And if it does have a smoke screen, we don't have sonar, so we can't push it, especially if it's German or British, and we know it has sonar. And the other one is you don't have RDF. You have to remember, the Americans have RDF, and they're gunboat destroyers. The Russians have RDF, and they're basically the same as you. That's the thing you have to remember. If you're going for a gunboat destroyer, and you want to focus on guns, and you don't care too much about torpedoes, you're probably going to want to play Americans or Russians. Russians have got the speed and the big guns, just like you, but they come with RDF. They come with smoke. They come with engine boost. The only downside of the Russians is they have 4 kilometer torpedoes. If you can accept 4 kilometer torpedoes, then you're probably going to want to look at the Russians. The Americans, okay, they can't stealth torpedo, but they do have a very good DPM, and they have RDF and engine boost and smoke. So both of them can find and kill destroyers more effectively than you, if you think about it that way. Because with the French, you're kind of relying on luck and other people and personal experience to go, oh, it's got to be a destroyer over in this area, and try and find it. The Japanese have RDF, so they can avoid you if they want to. The British have sonar, so with one of these, if you find a British destroyer is just going to pop a smoke screen and run. Okay, yeah, you can hound him and chase him down, but you don't want to overextend yourself. You're going to have to be careful. And a clever British destroyer player is just going to go, right, I'm going to run back to my nearest friendly cruiser for protection. And if you want to chase me, you can chase me. And if you use your main battery reload booster, and the British know it, afterwards they can come torment you almost. And the Germans, I think if you want to have decent torpedoes, decent guns, smoke, engine boost, sonar, RDF, you're going to take the Germans. And this is the thing, this is why I think these aren't as good as they could be. Because if you want a big gun destroyer with decent torpedoes to hunt other destroyers, the Guide, the Mass, the Z-23, stick Eric Bay in there, have the RDF ability, you've got engine boost, you've got smoke, you've got decent torpedoes. Yes, they don't hit hard, but you've got a better stealth torpedo range, you've got the same kind of maneuverability, and you have the ability to find enemy destroyers. I think I don't want to say the French destroyers are bad. They're interesting, but I think, considering some of the other nations out there, they can do the job better. and so I don't think the French destroyers have a niche in this game. Obviously, that's just my opinion. So if you disagree or if you agree, you can comment below. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on the French destroyers, and that's my commander builds. If I was going to go for a gunboat destroyer, that I'd go for Louis Valletti. If I was going to go for a torpedo boat destroyer, then I'd go for Abion. I think the torpedo boat destroyers are better because the torpedoes hit hard, and you can kind of just play it that way. Whereas with a gunboat destroyer, you're relying on your ability to drop off detectability really quickly and to disengage. And you have to also consider that as a gunboat destroyer, you do not have the tools to find an enemy destroyer. You're kind of relying on a bit of luck because they're going to see you first. Oh, well, I hope you enjoyed this. Feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you like this kind of content, feel free to subscribe. If you have any of your own game captures in French destroyers that you'd like to submit, or even for ranked, that can be either covered with my commentary for amateur reports or analysed for sea trials to help people learn the game. Feel free to send them in. Our email address is down in the description. I've been the Garage Major, and back to the port.